What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and we're back with another podcast. And today we are joined by Monero developer Riccardo Spagni. But before we jump in and talk with him, I want to let you guys know what I've been up to lately. I just got back from a quick 2-week vacation. I know people have been missing the vids, and I'm sorry, guys. Don't worry. We're back with some more podcasts and videos and everything else coming up, so stay tuned for more. All right, let's go ahead and jump in here, and I want to welcome to the podcast Riccardo Spagni. Thank you for joining us today, man.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a man with a bit of an image in the cryptocurrency community. I'm gonna say someone who doesn't care too much what other people think. Would that be a fair way to describe you?
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I care what my wife thinks, but beyond that, yeah, not really.
I also, and I'm a poker player, so I'm good with reads, and I'm getting a read that you like wine. Would you say that that's fair?
I must say, I don't know how you gathered that. I'm blown away, Doug. That is the true mastery.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump in here and talk about some serious stuff right out of the gate. How did you get the nickname Fluffy Pony?
When you said serious stuff, I thought you were gonna like start with a softball, straight into the hard-hitting questions. Okay, so one of my first jobs, I worked at an IT company, and there were these two girls in the sales department, and they were known as Fluffy Puppy and Fluffy Bunny, Irene and Tracy, and somehow, just by hook and by crook, I got the name Fluffy Pony, courtesy of them, and it kind of stuck. And, when you get gifted a name like that, it doesn't matter how much you want to get rid of it. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a pretty great nickname. Hold on one second. I'm being told my mic has issues. I sound like a robot. Let me just quickly change this.
Well, no, I can't hear you.
All right, sorry about that, guys. We have some tech.
There we go.
It's not a podcast unless you have a few tech problems. That's the way that it is these days. So yeah, no, I mean, the nickname is great. It's kind of like just pretty. It's confusing. It's like, what is a fluffy pony?
Yeah, because most ponies are fluffy, right?
Right.
So you're sort of like doubling up on it. It's like wet seal.
It just doesn't make sense. So let's jump in and talk about Monero. Now, Monero has been having there's been a lot going on lately, a lot of talk about ASIC resistance and the direction for the future of Monero. And we actually just saw a hard fork, which resulted in, I believe, 4 new coins, a couple called Monero Classic, one of which I assume is piggybacking off the other, Monero Zero, Monero Original. I don't even know all of the coins, but we're seeing a lot of contention in the space in general about if we should be okay with ASIC mining, to the degree that we see it today. What are your thoughts on that subject?
So I guess, like, to clarify, because a lot of people believe that ASICs are either entirely positive or entirely negative, I think there's a lot more nuance. I have no problem with ASICs in general. I think they're an eventuality. I don't think you can avoid them forever. The problem is that ASICs at the moment seem to be, and this goes for almost every digital currency, ASICs seem to be very, very clustered. You've got a small group of people who can afford to run them, that have both the technical skills and the money, and you've got a small group of people who are manufacturing them. That's not the reason that Monero resists ASICs entirely, but it definitely is a contributing factor. The main reason that Monero resists ASICs is because in the white paper, which wasn't written by me, it said that egalitarian mining is a goal, and so that was kind of the Nicholas van Severhagen's true vision speech, if I'm going to go down that road. But the reality is that, practically speaking, ASICs do actually represent an attack vector against Monero. You can use them to create a whole bunch of seemingly valid blocks that then get processed by Monero nodes, and then they only find out right at the end that the block is invalid. And that's problematic because Monero's proof of work algorithm, it doesn't have asymmetry. So it costs as much to produce as it does to validate. And so that's kind of a big problem. Encryption, for example, typically lacks asymmetry as well. And that can create a denial of service attack vector. So by resisting ASICs, we're not only preventing an attack vector, but we're also sticking to Nicholas von Saberhagen's true vision. Long term, I don't think it's feasible to resist ASICs through the 6-monthly proof of work tweak thing that we're doing. I'd love to embrace ASICs, or at least embrace a proof of work algorithm that doesn't have the vulnerability that we currently have. But I think that to embrace ASICs, they have to be commoditized. And what I mean by that is, like, think about USB flash drives, right? If I said to you, like, oh, there's a company producing a new type of USB flash drive, you're going to go, who cares? You know, you get given USB flash drives everywhere. You go to a conference, they're in swag bags. That's commoditization. So until we get to a point where ASICs are commoditized and you go to a conference and you get given an ASIC in a swag bag, I think that the onus is on us as a community and as a digital currency to resist them for as long as we can.
So talking about the centralization of them, and small groups of people having a lot of the power, isn't that sort of just the way that an economy works when you have a proof of work algorithm, that the people that have the cheapest electricity and are able to buy the best equipment and are able to basically mine at the absolute cheapest rate, they have a competitive advantage against the other people that are trying to mine. So isn't it sort of inevitable that with proof of work mining that we're going to see this happen? Or what are your thoughts?
So yes, it's partly true. I think that the thing is that there's an edge, right? So let me give you an example. Let's take GPU miners. So GPU miners will use software that most of them will use software they download off GitHub that some other person has wrote and tweaked. But then a large mining farm might employ somebody who either writes his own or he takes that code off GitHub and tweaks it for their farm. And they have an edge. And their edge is like small. It's like 5%, let's say. They've got a 5% mining edge, which is pretty big in the broader, for their mining farm. But in the broader scheme of things, is not that big. It's not like it's orders of magnitude better. And eventually, someone else is going to figure out those tweaks, and eventually they're going to make their way into the open source software. Same goes with ASICs, right? You start off manufacturing at what, like 28 nanometers? And then over time, you get smaller and smaller till eventually you're manufacturing at like 7 nanometers. And that's kind of the edge of like what you can comfortably manufacture an ASIC on. So, barring massive breakthroughs in technology, we want to get down to that as quickly as possible. We want GPU miners to all be running the same software so that nobody has an edge. And then it comes down to like who has the most money to spend on brute force. But ultimately, you don't have like massive competitive advantage except I have more money than you.
Which is always a pretty good competitive advantage. So how would you compare the centralization of Monero's mining pools compared to Bitcoin? What would you say are some of the differences between the two?
I mean, there's not massive differences. There certainly are more Bitcoin pools, but like, again, no one cares about the tiny ones or the private ones or the ones that don't make waves. You've maybe got 6 mining pools that matter. And it's the same in Monero. You've got a handful of mining pools that matter, and miners tend to cluster. I think they tend to cluster because of the repetitive payouts, and they don't want to have that long gap between payouts. But at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter. I mean, like miners can and can't cluster, doesn't matter. The community, like with Bitcoin, if a pool starts to get too big, the community puts up PSAs on Reddit and everyone tweets about this pool has got 43%. Oh my God, it's a disaster. And then some miners come off and then everything's fine again. So it's very similar to Bitcoin in those respects.
Also, I think when people see that a certain pool has a large share of the mining, it doesn't necessarily mean that individual players within that pool control the entirety of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it doesn't mean that individual miners have got control over anything. The problem is that with the current way that pools work, both for Bitcoin and for Monero, you're reliant on the pool to create blocks. So the pool could use the mining base that it's got to do naughty things. It's unlikely it would use it for like a 51% attack, but something that a pool can do is it can censor transactions. And it can be like, well, I'm not going to mine these transactions because I think that they're coming from Shapeshift. And so, I'm just going to block them and delete them from my mempool. And those transactions will eventually be mined. But if a pool has got like 51% of the hash rate, then they're going to be mined significantly slower.
Okay, interesting. I know there are a lot of people that are worried about a 51% network attack. Is that something that is feasible or possible, or what are your thoughts on that subject?
In general, or with Monero?
With Monero specifically.
Yeah, of course. 50 at the end of the day, once you've got 51% of the hash rate, you can basically you can rewrite the rules. The trick is you don't only have to have 51% of the hash rate, you also have to have a supermajority of economically sensitive nodes. So at 51%, the only thing you can really do is a double spend, and you have to really partition the network in order for that to work. So you kind of need to be able to go, I know that this node is Poloniex, and I know that this node is Bitfinex, and I'm going to run thousands of nodes to partition them off, and I'm going to send one chain to that node and one chain to this node and make sure that they don't see the same chain so that they don't reorg. And then I've got to maintain that for 30 minutes, however long it takes to confirm. And once it's confirmed, then I have a deposit on both exchanges, and I can trade and sell. And I've got to maintain that attack until my withdrawal is processed. So this becomes exceedingly and prohibitively expensive if you're doing it through rented hardware or whatever. But if you happen to run a mining pool and you have 51% of the hash rate, maybe.
Right, but they're economically incentivized to not do that, right?
I don't believe in economic incentives as a way to prevent attack.
Okay.
The economic incentive thing gets thrown around a lot. It's like, oh, they're not in, what is the one I heard the other day? ASIC manufacturers are not economically incentivized to attack the network. And then I'm like, yes, but you've got a whole bunch of entities that have enough money to go and spend $100,000 buying some ASICs and attacking the network. So it's not always about the manufacturer being economically incentivized. It's not always about the pool being economically incentivized. What if the pool gets hacked? What if the pool operator gets kidnapped and beaten with, a rusty mallet until he gives up his passwords and access to the server? So we're always basing our conclusions on everyone being rational, everyone having perfect security, and no attackers that are even slightly well funded on a small scale being interested in attacking us. We're always thinking big. We're thinking like the NSA. Oh, what if the NSA goes and attacks Bitcoin? It's like, no. What if Ripple decide to attack Bitcoin? You know what I mean? There are much smaller targets here that are much smaller attackers that we need to worry about.
Right, and then it benefits them to cause chaos to the currencies that are larger than them, which would make some sense. I think we've seen some sort of network spam or attacks supposedly from some of the Bitcoin Cash community on Bitcoin during the run up in December. Do you have any thoughts on that subject, or what do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's pretty clear, at least now, that there were definite spam attacks. I mean, you can see there's and again, when I say spam attacks, it doesn't necessarily mean malicious person that's spamming the network. It could be Coinbase, and they're processing a bunch of withdrawals, and they're not batching their transactions, and that is a spam attack. It doesn't mean Coinbase is malicious and they're going, oh, let me destroy the Bitcoin network. I'm Fred Urson, and I'm Brian Armstrong, and we're destroying Bitcoin. I mean, it could just be they didn't expect the rush of people that are onboarding, and they didn't expect the withdrawals, and there's a bank run, and they're going the technical people are going, oh, we've got to figure this out, and poor Jesse, the head of engineering, is having a panic attack. And meanwhile, everyone else on the outside is going, oh, look at this, it's a spam attack, and screw Roger, it's obviously his fault.
Well, Coinbase was proven to have not batched their transactions correctly, and that they had a lot of lost Bitcoin in accounts that they could never get out. That's just been proven.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are sometimes attacks come from people who don't mean to attack. They're not malicious. They're just naive or stupid, or they just or quite honestly, they just don't expect things to explode the way they do, and then they're like, oh dear.
So let's bring this back to talking about the forks. So would you say that there's at least some portion of the Monero community that is more pro ASIC in general? I know you didn't say that they're inherently bad, but that are more pro ASIC causing a lot of these forks? Because I believe after the fork, a lot of miners moved over to mining Monero Classic directly afterwards. So why do you think that this kind of movement has happened, and is there a lot of support for these various Monero forks?
So what we're seeing a couple of things, right? The first thing that we're seeing is that there are miners. Okay, well, let me back this up a second. Monero ASICs are not publicly available. So the 800 odd mega hash a second that's moved over to mining Monero Classic, that's not miners individually going, well, I have my 2 Bitmain boxes and I want to point them at Monero Classic. It's Bitmain and Halong and whoever else and Baikel. I can't even pronounce half the people's names. It's these manufacturers that have a bunch of ASICs. I mean, obviously, they're the first off the block, or seemingly the first off the block. Obviously, they're going to mine with them before they sell them. And in fact, I would say that the only reason they made it public and put a price on it and started selling them is because in February we announced that we're going to make the proof of work change. So it's sort of like a forcing factor. And then they go like, oh, there goes our whole secret mining operation that we were going to run for 2 years. Explosions. Well, now we have to sell them. So they put them up for sale, but they're still running them. And then the proof of work thing happens, and then they're like, well, okay, well, what are we going to do? We can't take these units down and sell them just yet because we still want to mine with them, because we still have competitive advantage. So we're just going to switch to mining Monero Classic. So there's not a lot of evidence. I mean, you go in like the Monero mining subreddit and that, there aren't a bunch of people saying, I've pointed my GPUs at Monero Classic because that's, I'm an idiot and I want to mine Monero Classic. That's not a thing that's happening. There are definitely people in the Monero community who think ASICs are good. But again, they're going, ASICs are good. Let's switch eventually to SHA-3 when ASICs for SHA-3 are commoditized. They're not going, let's switch to ASICs today. They're not stupid enough to do that. They're level-headed enough to say ASICs are an eventuality. And there's a whole GitHub issue discussing embracing ASICs in the future. And there's a bunch of really good discussion happening there. But literally, like, I have not seen anyone besides like sock puppets that have gone like, ASICs are positive and I'm switching my miners to mining Monero 0.
So in your opinion, are these forks then destined to fail, or what do you think about them versus Monero?
So, I mean, if we look at forks that have happened in the past, you've got like Ethereum Classic, and you've got Bitcoin Cash as examples of where contentious forkaways have happened. And with both of those, there was community support and even developer support. I mean, with Ethereum Classic, there was a cabal of developers that were like, well, we're going to run with this. And there were members of the community, and there were certainly Bitcoiners as well that were like, oh, yay, Ethereum's dying. I'm going to try and help that along. And then of course with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you had you had sock puppets, you had all of that. But let's be honest, there are real people that think Bitcoin Cash is the future. I've met them in real life.
Yeah, and I also, sorry, not to cut you off, really quick though, I do think it's worth mentioning as well that I do think that the Bitcoin Cash community, what they want is more in line with what whoever Satoshi is, with what he wanted or what he wrote about. I just don't think that it's the best path forward. So I can kind of understand where that community is coming from.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like I've often said, I think Bitcoin Cash is great as an outlet for people who think that big blocks are a way to scale. And there's their outlet. Great. And I don't want to sort of get too often on a tangent, but in other words, like prior forks have had like reasonably large community support and even developer support and monetary support. I mean, with Bitcoin Cash, you had some people like Roger with deep pockets who supported that, and that they can go hire devs and so on. And what we're seeing with Monero is a lot less of that. Now, maybe Bitmain throws some money at Monero Classic and they go and hire devs, but amongst the Monero developers, there's not a single one that has gone, oh, you know, I think that you guys are making a big mistake. I mean, all of this decision making that was done, and the actual proof of work tweak and all of that was done completely in the open, in a way that the community could contribute and discuss, in a way that the developers, of which there are several hundred, could contribute and discuss all the different options. So none of the stuff was done in secret or done by a small group of people who chose something. And because of that, we have this broad support. And anyone who says otherwise is probably a sock puppet. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't any, there's no one in the community who thinks that I'm an idiot or thinks that this decision was bad, but it is definitely, it is like the minority of the minority. And they're not vocal enough to drum up support for Monero Classic, Monero Original, or Monero anything.
Right, and you really need that community support long-term to find success with really any currency. I mean, you've got plenty of great examples of the exact opposite, where you only have community support, and sometimes that can go a long way. And so on an unrelated note, what are your thoughts on Verge?
Verge, yeah. Look, I mean, they have all the ring CTs, right? I've heard they have 32 ring CTs, and I just want to like really focus in on the 32 ring CTs, because I think that that's going to make their ring CTs much better than Monero's ring CTs. Or so they tell me. And you know, what do I know? I'm just a fluffy pony.
Very true. You are just a fluffy pony. But what do you think about how this currency has really exploded behind sort of, I mean, seemingly fake privacy and just the hype train? And I'm not really sure if you're too familiar with what's been going on for the last week or two, but we've had a lot of shenanigans. The announcement of a big announcement. The founder, I think, posting something about needing money to pay his taxes or something like that. We had the hack where a bunch of Verge was mined, and then the accidental fork, which was another fantastic move there. How can something with what seems to have so many problems still manage to garner so much community support and then also increase in price? And by the way, as of I think 4 or 5 days ago, Verge, the cryptocurrency, blocked me on Twitter. I've never gotten blocked by a cryptocurrency before, but you know what? First time for everything.
Well, clearly it's decentralized. I mean, you know, everyone voted on blocking you, Doug. Weren't you around when everyone took the vote?
Yeah, miners had to signal for that.
yeah, of course. If you vote block V3, it means block Doug. I'm very confused right now. Okay. So I have a couple of things that I've observed with Verge. The first is that there are a truckload of sock puppets on Twitter. I mean, there are a ginormous amount of sock puppets on Twitter. I thought that the number of sock puppets with like Bitcoin private was bad, but it's real bad with Verge. And you can see that they're sock puppets because, you know, you go dig into a lot of these profiles and they're super generic and they're just retweeting ICO announcements and stuff like that. And a lot of the comments have got like, you know, there's similar turns of phrase and similar words and that sort of thing, weasel words that are used. And you look at that and you're like, well, either, you know, this is a bunch of people sitting in a room all chatting to each other, or it's just like, you know, a handful of people controlling a bunch of sock puppets. And that very much steers the conversation. And I mean, this is not new to us. We've seen evidence of sock puppetry being used during the elections and all sorts of things. Controlling the message seems to be a key thing. And it's easy with Reddit and with Twitter because you can use things like likes and retweets, right? If you view someone's comment and it's got 130 retweets and 507 likes, and you see the person below it who's got 3 likes, who are you going to believe? You know, like naturally we gravitate towards the person with more likes because we go, oh, their comment must be correct. And we're obviously dumb and don't understand what's going on. But the reality is that it could just be someone manipulating the message. And I don't want to go too tinfoil hat because, again, I mean, I've met people who think that Verge is great. They're largely untechnical or non-technical. They're people who aren't developers. They're not cryptographers. They're not people who are technically sophisticated enough to go, I can, you know, make an assertion here and understand why this is better or why that is better. There are people who are just trying to bandwagon. They're trying to buy something and make some money, and a lot of them have. And I wish them all the best with that. Because this is not a discussion about whether the price goes up or down, because we've seen that the market is idiotic. When was it? Last year, year before? No, last year. We found a exploit in CryptoNote, in the protocol. And we found a way that it could be exploited, not only for Monero, but for Bitcoin and for Dashcoin and for a bunch of other CryptoNote currencies, not Dashcoin, which is a different thing. And so we discreetly patched Monero, and we waited until after a hard fork, till the whole network had upgraded. And then we went and contacted all of these CryptoNote currencies, and we said, you've got a month to disclose before we disclose, or a month to fix before we disclose. And then a month later, we disclosed. And when we disclosed, one of the things we discovered was that after we disclosed this discreetly and privately to these various CryptoNote currencies, someone had gone and attacked the Bitcoin network and created a bunch of coins out of thin air. And when this was disclosed publicly, when we disclosed it, and we also disclosed later, like a day later, the Bitcoin attack, the Bitcoin price went up. And I was like, this makes no sense. It's like, hey, guys, firstly, Monero were the ones who discovered it. You know, like, big ups to us for discovering it. Big up to, like, the Monero Research Lab people and all of that for discovering it. Big ups to us for, like, our disclosure and all of that, and for all of the hard work we put into like disclosing this in a way and not using this to attack other cryptocurrencies, because we could have made a bunch of money ourselves. I could have been on a yacht in the Mediterranean instead of having a wall of wine behind me. And you know, big ups to us for doing that. No. The Monero price is just like, whatever. And the Bitcoin price is like, oh, we got attacked and someone created a bunch of money out of nothing. Whoop, to the moon. And so that was like one of many lessons I've learned over the past 6 years. In the markets are not as rational as people imagine them to be. So you got to kind of like, you know, just sort of winding back to Verge, you've got to put the price aside. If people make money, great. But the problem is they make a bit of money and they become bag holders. And they think to themselves, I've made money with this, so I must be a very clever decision maker, and I must be able to identify things before other people. So I must be a super genius trader. And maybe I should start a paid pump group on Telegram. And these are all like the wrong decisions to make, because you just got lucky. And you know, you are very fortunate in choosing something that got pumped by a bunch of sock puppets. That doesn't mean you're a bright spark who can figure things out. It doesn't mean you're technical. But that's what we're seeing, not just with Verge, with other things as well. It's just a repeat of the same, like, control the message, build bag holders, and the bag holders will pump it for you.
It sounds like you handled that issue exactly how you should. When you reached out to the other coins after you guys had already fixed it, did they respond by saying that they were on it, or did they talk to you? Or because it would be one thing if you said, "Hey, you guys have a month," and they're like, "Whatever, we're just going to do our own thing." But did they try to like ask for help on how to fix it, or did they just not really care? Like, what happened there?
So in our message to them, we had all the details, the technical details of what was broken. We didn't point them to the exact patch, but we did explain to them exactly what needed to be patched. Some of them just went and patched it. Some did discreetly. And like, I think two of them, one of them came back to us and said, can you please help us, and point like exactly what we need to patch, which was, you know, I mean, it's a little embarrassing for them, but like, because it wasn't that difficult, but no problem. You know, they can figure it. I just pointed back to our code to where it was. And it was like, yeah, guys, here's the patch. But generally speaking, they were pretty like, you know, like no one was really rude or negative about it.
I mean, when it comes, you know, it's one thing to feel embarrassed about something, but when it comes to money, you just got to do the right thing. You know, you can't just be like embarrassed to ask, you know, to point out where you need the help.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, these, like, at the end of the day, you're playing with other people's money. You're not just playing with your own or with your dad's or with, like, you know, Uncle Bob's money. You're playing with like tens of thousands of people's money.
Yeah, that is not a good situation for all of the people. It is ridiculous to me though that whenever some of these communities pop up like Verge, and in some ways it reminds me of the BitConnect community where everyone's just super gung-ho, ready to go. Anyone says something negative, you're a scam or something, or whatever their response would be. I just don't understand why people can't approach it with a more open mind of, I'm going to listen to what notable people have to say and think about this, and then be aware of what's going on while I make my decision. That's how you know, coming from poker, that's how you win money in poker. You don't win money in poker by saying, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, and then if I lose, they were wrong. You know, that's not how you learn or how you improve. And it's funny to me because something happens when people make money, and this is something that you mentioned. Something happens where people view it as justification for whatever thought process got them to that end result. They were right. And I hear this argument all the time on Twitter, nonstop. Whenever I say something negative about a currency that I don't really believe in, and I'm not technical at all, I just try to respect the opinions of people that are thought leaders in the space, and also, you know, read information that happens on the internet. And when I try and warn people about what I think, you know, could potentially be a scam, or that, you know, something is wrong with a currency, or they're misleading people, the people just always have the same response, and it's always the same response. It's, you're just mad because you missed out on these gains. It's always that. It's always about the gains. And it's like, no, there are people that have made lots of money on things that I would never have wanted to be part of. There are things that I wished I was part of, but this is not me jealous, like that, and angry that I missed out. And another thing, for those people that's, you know, you have to take a step back and think about it. I've been in cryptocurrency for a few years. I've made some gains, maybe not with some extra Z's at the end because I didn't 50x or 200x or whatever, but anyone that's been involved in crypto has made money over the last 3 or 4 years. Yes, if you entered in the last 4 months, it probably didn't go so hot, but the majority of the community, and at least the community that's been around for a while, has made money. So I just don't get why people, as a defense mechanism, talk about how much money they've made. That's not really that important. Everything made money. In fact, find me somebody who bought a bunch of cryptocurrency at the start of 2017 who's down. It's got to be pretty rare.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't know. I mean, I get that. I get the salty thing as well. Everyone's like, oh, you're just salty. It's like, salty for what? Because you didn't buy Ripple at 50 cents. It's like, no, I'm completely fine, thanks. Like, I mean, apart from losing all of my private keys in a terrible boating accident, you know, I've made money from crypto. It's been great. And I think that it's, what?
I think we're going to have to talk, what happened in a boating accident?
Didn't you know that I lost all of my private keys in a terrible boating accident?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you see, it's a proof. I mean, it serves me right for, like, firstly, just using paper wallets, only having one copy and keeping them, like taking them with me when I went on a boat called the Titanic 2. I mean, that was like, you know, something should have told me that something was going to happen. And alas, I lost all of my crypto, you know, but at least I can still be out there like talking about it and not having to worry about earning any. So that's totally fine. And, you know, if any tax people are listening, it's just been such a sad story, and I don't really want to talk about it.
I understand where you're coming from. I feel like there are a lot of prominent people in crypto who happen to have lost everything. So it's really a shame.
It is. Panda happened to be in the same boat. He also had all of his paper wallets in him. It was rough. Unreal.
Struggling to get by. I'm surprised you could afford even half of that wine in the wall behind you.
Yeah, thankfully I bought the wine before the boating accident, and now I just don't drink any bottles because, you know, I can't afford any of them to like go because the wall of wine's gonna look empty.
That argument would have been better if you weren't drinking some wine in this podcast.
You raise a good point, Doug.
There we go. All right, so let's talk about some other privacy coins. I think that the biggest one after Monero is Zcash. I don't consider Dash to be a privacy coin. I know there are some people that do. It has a privacy function that I think is, I'm not too familiar with it, so I don't want to say anything bad about Dash, but my understanding is the privacy function isn't either exactly working correctly, or it's not there yet, or there's some issue with it. I'm sure you would know this much better than I do. But do you want to either talk about that or Zcash?
Why not both? Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that I don't think that unfortunately Dash does get roped into like or bundled into the privacy coin thing, I guess because of its dark coin origins. And so I've seen regulators talk about it as a privacy coin. I don't think they're going to be able to shirk that. I think they've tried. There was a point at which the privacy mixing stuff that they have wasn't working and was disabled or whatever. I don't know if that's changed, but I think even if they left it disabled forever, they would still be called a privacy coin. So it is what it is. I mean, like that's a thing, where like you get a label once and how do you ever get rid of it? They're like the fluffy pony of nicknames. It's just
you're just stuck with them.
Yeah, you're just stuck with it. Like Dash is a privacy coin. Okay, all right. Okay, Dash is a privacy coin. I'm not going to argue with you. So yeah, but I mean, like that aside, I think it's CoinJoin. It's not really worth discussing. There are better implementations of CoinJoin out there. CoinJoin's gone far ahead, so it's not even worth really discussing that privacy aspect. Zcash, on the other hand, Zcash is great. They like from an advancing technology perspective, it's great. It's like this really cool science project. Where Zcash falls apart is when you take the cool science project and you put it into production. It's like you've got a bunch of kids who built this like amazing volcano for their science fair, and the volcano explodes and the lava flows down the side. And then someone went, "Hey kids, do you want to build a life-size volcano and we'll turn it into a theme park?" And they went, "Yay, let's do that." And then like people are like, "Why doesn't the theme park make money? And why is the giant mountain made out of paper mache? That was a terrible idea. And why does the roller coaster fall off?" It's fantastic in terms of advancing science. It's just not a production system. It's terrible as a production system because you can't make it default private. And if it's not default private, then what's the point? And so they've got these things that are coming with Sapling, and Sapling is going to make it so much better. But it's still not ready for default privacy. They've still got a bunch of changes they have to make. And part of those changes are the fact that they're now pretty deep in the ecosystem. And that ecosystem largely only supports the unprivate transactions, the T-address to T-address stuff. And so you've got wallets that go like, "Oh, we've added Zcash," but they only support T-addresses. And you've got exchanges that go, "Oh, you can deposit your Zcash here," but they only support T-address deposits. And so now it's going to take even more work, because not only do they need to now create all of these improvements that make it feasible to go like private by default, but they then need to go to the whole ecosystem and say, "Hey guys, please, will you just change all your software to use this new thing that we built?" And when the ecosystem has eventually changed, they'll be able to go default private. And once they've done all of that, they will still have the problem with the trusted setup. So it's just like, it's like great from an advancement of science perspective. It's like 10 out of 10 for advancement of science, 10 out of 10 for like really cool advanced cryptography that no one understands, minus several million for good thinking.
And that's an interesting ride. I'd go on that ride. Sounds fun. So
on the paper mache mountain.
The paper mache mountain. So what are your thoughts on ZK Starks? I know that they've been working on that lately. Do you have any thoughts on the subject?
Yes, so ZK Starks are super exciting to me. I love ZK Starks. It's like, cool, here's the zero knowledge thing that we need. It's, concise, and it does all the cool stuff, and it's a proof and whatever, and generalized zero knowledge circuit and all of the words. We're just going to throw an AI and VR and we've got an ICO. And ZK Starks are amazing, but you throw out the trusted setup, but the amount of memory and processing power required just grows infinitesimally higher. If memory serves, and I'm just going off memory here, the very basic implementation of the model or whatever that they built was like 133 gigs to build a ZK Stark proof. So 133 gigs of memory, not so great. Like that's beyond most computers, except for like high-end servers. Forget about most like phones and whatever. So they've got the same problem. They've got the same problem over again, but at least it gets rid of the trusted setup, which is great.
Can you explain the trusted setup a little bit?
Sure. So the trusted setup component is like the way I like to explain it to people is imagine that you took all of the people that were involved in the trusted setup and you had them in a room, and then whenever you needed to send money to someone, you sent money to those people in the room, and they took your money and they said, "Okay, thank you." and then they created new money out of thin air and sent it to the person that you want. I mean, it's a vast oversimplification, but effectively you're trusting those people, and they've got this new multi-party computation, which is significantly better because it takes a lot more people. And they've got this whole thing about how you only have to trust one of the 300 people or whatever. And all of that is great. The reality is that is true, but you've still got to trust the implementation. And you still have to, you still have implementation failure, which has happened before. I mean, they had a fairy gold attack before they were in production. And the fairy gold attack was really about creating Zcash out of nothing. And it was an implementation failure. It had nothing to do with trusted setup people or individuals. It was straight up implementation failure. So that thing can happen. And because we're dealing with moon math and with cryptography that is so new, and now we're trusting our stuff to cryptography that isn't 2 decades old, it's like just created the other day, it's extremely risky, and there can be implementation failure that not only puts privacy at risk, because of some sort of cryptographic failure, but the implementation failure can lead to a failed economic system that lets you create money out of thin air. And who wants to use an economic system that lets you do that?
I think a lot of people that I've talked to here on this podcast have had a lot of respect for the way that Monero created its cryptography, because you guys use your own cryptography, correct? A lot of other people have used the same as Bitcoin, but you guys developed your own entire cryptography, right? Is that correct?
So when you say you guys, I suppose I should just clarify this so that everyone understands. I didn't create Monero. I didn't create the code, the first bit of code that created Monero. So the Monero white paper is by a guy called Nicholas von Saberhagen. And that's a pseudonym. He exists, obviously, but we don't know if it's one person or 3 people or, some guy called Nicholas and some guy called Dan. So it's kind of our Satoshi, but like the white paper version. And then the actual implementation was written by, again, a pseudonym, Antonio Juarez. And maybe there's some Mexican guy who's like, hello, I am Antonio. And he's coding, deep into the night. I don't know. And then of course, the actual launch of Monero, again, wasn't by me. It was by a guy called Thankful for Today. And Thankful for Today is kind of like our Satoshi, except a gigantic douchebag that we kicked out because he was a gigantic douchebag. So it's, like all of that process of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, was very, very much Nicholas von Saberhagen. And then some of the implementation stuff, like the Kryptonite proof of work algorithm, that was largely Antonio Juarez. And then the actual launch was Thankful for Today. So I have to give them credit where credit is due, because that none of us can take credit for. But a lot of the stuff we've done, all of the stuff we've done subsequently, which has been everything from RingCT to using LMDB for blockchain storage, to using 0MQ for interaction between different components. All of the stuff that we've done subsequently, and all of the cool work that we've done, and all of the cool like crypto stuff we've done subsequently has been members of the Monero community, members of the Monero Research Lab, and Monero contributors and developers.
Yeah, it's good to distinguish the two. I guess I just meant Monero in general, and I was kind of grouping everybody together, which it was incorrect on my part.
Yeah, no, but that's a common mistake, and it's not a mistake. It's a common thing that people do, but it's like I always feel it's important to like try and at least give credence to the people that have made this journey possible. But to get back to your original point, yes. So Monero isn't based on Bitcoin's code. It has its own code base. It doesn't use the same elliptic curve as Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses SecP 256K1. Monero uses X25519 by Daniel J. Bernstein. So there's vast differences not only in the actual code but in the cryptography. And this has both got advantages and disadvantages. You've got advantages in that there's cool stuff that we can do because we have our own code base and we don't have to follow any upstream code base. And so we can go like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we use 0MQ and we did PubSub and yada, yada, yada. And then we've got disadvantages because you go to like Exodus the wallet, and you're like, hey guys, wouldn't it be cool if you had Monero and Exodus? And the Exodus guys go, oh cool, you're a Bitcoin fork, and you go, no, we're not, and they go, you know, like we have to do a bunch of work to do that, and it becomes painful. And we've seen that with Ledger, that have taken like a year to really get Monero support on Ledger, and it's only really come together now. And it's because of the amount of work and effort that's needed to go into doing that. So that's just like, it's like one of those things with Monero. You kind of have to suck it up and remember that we're building from the ground up.
Right. So you guys are going to be on Ledger at some point in the near future?
So in fact, we are in Ledger already, if you've got the dev kit and all that. And I saw some commits happening today to fix a couple of small little issues. Not functional issues, but speed issues. And so I would hope, like, once the stuff goes in, probably alongside the Monero 0.12.1 point release, there will be official Ledger support.
Are there any long-term plans to be on Trezor?
I believe the Trezor guys are working on it. I've heard rumors of it. I think that Ledger's kind of blazed the way, and there's a lot of stuff that they can suck in from that. There's also a group within the Monero community that is building its own hardware wallet, which I believe is based on the Trezor schematics, if memory serves. So there's a lot of work being done on hardware key management and hardware key storage, both from Trezor themselves and from this group within the Monero community.
Yeah, it would be nice to have those. Then you might not lose all of your keys on a boat out in the ocean, you know?
Totally, because if you just like had it on a little thing that could float, and then you could just dive into the ocean and go and get the key, and then you'd be like, yay.
Right, because of floatability. That's what we're looking for here.
Exactly.
All right, so let's change over to some more big picture stuff. I think that, well, first of all, let me open with this. I've been a big fan of Monero for a long time. It's my favorite currency after Bitcoin. It's the only privacy coin that I feel is really private and has done things correctly. So I'm a big fan of it. One thing I worry about, though, is I worry about how governments are going to feel about what privacy coins are, because there's already a lot of fear from governments when it comes to cryptocurrencies. For example, the IRS, the tax, the Internal Revenue Service here in America, they're freaking out about cryptocurrencies. I actually, a few years ago, had an IRS agent show up at my door, and I had a meeting with a couple IRS agents, and I was like, this is not like good for me. But then they were like, so do you know any people using cryptocurrencies? And I was just like, what? No, but anyway, so they're worried about it, and governments are not. They're already having enough problems tracking this from a tax perspective, and then you add in everything being completely anonymous. Are you worried that governments are not going to take kindly to this, and that ultimately Monero could be banned in certain countries? Do you think that's part of the process for its growth, or are you not too concerned about this for the long-term success of Monero?
So, okay, so here's my thoughts on this. I believe strongly in regulatory arbitrage. And the reason I believe in regulatory arbitrage is because the world has gone mad. Let me give you two examples of how the world has gone mad. Today, I heard that in the UK, they are freaking out about people carrying knives because of knife violence. And the mayor of London said that he's going to take a firm stance against people that are carrying knives. And if you are caught carrying a knife in the UK, you will be in trouble, young man. There will be jail time and stuff. And yeah, I mean, like, straight up serious, carrying knives, big deal. And then you go to China, where if you go to a market and you buy a kitchen knife, they have a special machine that they have to buy from the government in order to sell knives. And this special machine takes your ID card or your ID number, and it prints a QR code and the name underneath that on the knife. It laser etches the QR code in. So if that knife is ever used to stab someone and then left bloody on the floor, the police can pick it up and look at the QR code and say, like, ah, yes, Doug Polk, that is the guy. He is the guy that we are going to take and put in jail. And so I look at this and I'm like, the world has gone mad. And anyone who lives in the UK and wants to carry a knife is obviously going to just leave the UK or risk certain death. And sure, there are a bunch of people around the world that can't move and they can't leave their country easily. Although I think with the immigrant shift that we've seen in Europe especially, I don't think that having enough money is even a problem anymore. People are just like, I'm done and I'm getting out. And we're going to see this, I think, on a small scale. We already do see it, in fact, in the US, where people go, I live in California. California's lovely. I love California. But, for tax benefits, I'm going to move over there. And for, certain other benefits, I'm going to move to a different state. And some people move into California for certain benefits. So we see all of this happening already. We see this regulatory arbitrage happening on a small scale and obviously on an extreme scale with immigrants. But I think we're going to start seeing it on a much larger scale eventually, because what's going to happen is you're going to have countries that go, and this is already happening. They go, we've created a regulatory sandbox. If you start a company that is in the blockchain space, that is in the cryptocurrency space, you want to move to like Mauritius, Singapore, Japan. There are a bunch of places that have created regulatory sandboxes. Bermuda, St. Kitts, like you want to go there because your company obviously wants to survive, and you want to be able to be given the sandbox to play in. And from a personal perspective, if you're moving to Singapore because your company needs to be there, then, maybe you go, hey, I'll move the family there. They're good schools or whatever. I don't know if the schools are good. I don't have children. I don't need to worry about that. But if you do have children, maybe you go I'm going to move to Japan and my kids are going to learn Japanese and participate in drifting around mountain corners because apparently that's what they do. And so there's all the stuff that's going to happen because people are going to be forced to move, not only for commercial and tax reasons, but because they're going I have a bunch of cryptocurrency, I become a target in the country that I call home, and so I need to move.
So are you arguing that if countries ban Monero, that people will move countries?
I think so. And I don't think it's going to be specific to Monero. I think that if that you see, there's not going to be a country that's going to go, well, everything is cool. You can use every currency, but not Monero, because Monero is bad and only used by criminals and also kitchen knives. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to see that countries start to bubble. They're going to go Monero and Zcash and also Dash, these are bad. And also, whilst we're at it, we're going to police all the exchanges, and you need to report all of your trades for the year, even on external exchanges. And we're going to use our tax treaties with other countries to try and leverage them. And we're going to use the sharing of information between countries to try and figure out what you've been doing with your secret cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. We know what Bitcoin Cash is. So I think we're going to start seeing that happen long before they go outright ban. They're going to go if you use Monero, you better write a letter justifying it or something like that. And then it's going to start bubbling up from there.
I think I'm going to counter with most people are not in a situation where they're able to leave based on certain things that they like or dislike about their government's policies. I think the majority of the world is, especially, I'd say the majority of the world, middle class or less, they just don't have the economic ability to do so. I think in certain countries, you're not able to change countries. You're limited on where you're allowed to go. And then I also think that most people are going to view it as, do I want to lose potentially my job or my wife's job or where my kids go to school or, my home and everything that I like about my life in order to support an element of my life that I enjoy? But is it worth it to go all the way? And I think that only a small subset of people are willing to make that change. And so I think that while there will be people that do decide to leave to pursue cryptocurrency or Monero or whatever the policies of our government or any government end up being, the vast majority will not, because they are unable to do so. So I think that will have a pretty large effect on the usage of cryptocurrencies and thus also the price.
Totally agree. So here's my counter to your counter. The people that are going to be moving are not going to be like middle class, suburban, like, you know, whatever, blue collar or like entry level white collar workers. The sort of people that have the forethought to get involved in cryptocurrency even now and to work in cryptocurrency. Fast forward 5 years from now, you know, if you buy like, and obviously this is totally hypothetical. Let's say you bought 1 Bitcoin today. You went and you spent $6,741 on a Bitcoin.
Don't remind me.
$10,973, whatever. Okay. So you go buy a Bitcoin today. And let's say fast forward 5 years and you don't spend the Bitcoin because you're forward thinking, but you're kind of, you know, you're not very adventurous. You've bought 1 Bitcoin and you've locked it away. And in 5 years' time, that Bitcoin is worth, I don't know, let's say McAfee is right and it's worth $1 million. Okay. And now you're like, cool, I have $1 million. But the ownership of that $1 million is at risk. So now I'm a forward-thinking, clever person. I work in IT, or I'm a doctor or an engineer or whatever. I build bridges. And now I need a move because otherwise I can't spend $1 million. And I can't better my family and our lives. So I'm going to move. I'm going to take a portion of that. I'm going to spend it and I'm going to move. And what ends up happening is a brain drain, right? Because now you've got a bunch of people who are like, these are the tip of the spear. These are the people that are driving the country forward academically and socially. And now they're going like, I can leave and I have reason to leave. And the reason is because my net worth is at risk if I stay.
Well, I assume any government policies will include some type of grace period in which people are allowed to sell what they hold. It's not that they're just going to they're going to come and take your Bitcoin. I don't think that that's something that's going to happen in really any first world country. I think that the worry is, all right, starting in 2 months, you can, and this is all hypothetical, right? And I don't think this is going to happen to cryptocurrency in its entirety here. But, you know, coming from a poker background, one day I woke up and my job was not legal anymore. They confiscated the money. They said, you can't do this here. And I had to leave the country. I actually had to move to another country in order to continue living. So whenever
and that's when you realize that being a gigolo was a bad idea from the beginning.
It's just sad what laws have done to us these days. But anyway, you know, that can happen. And I see a lot of maybe the naiveness from people that think that governments are going to be rational, or they're going to make good policies, or they're going to think about what happens. But, you know, with no warning, the DOJ seized hundreds of millions of dollars from online poker sites, and boom, everything shut down. And I just think about what that did to my life then, and that the government can completely just do something like that. I hope that they don't. I love cryptocurrency. I just also think it's important to be realistic about what governments are capable of doing and what they will do, and what, you know, certain people, if incentivized correctly, will do. And I also know a lot. I also think that I think the narrative is important. And I think about something like Bitcoin. And I remember seeing from like the New York hearings a few years ago where they said, this is used for crime. This is used for drugs. This is used for all kinds of bad things. People buy terrible things on the internet. And do we want to fund terrorist organizations here? And then if that becomes the narrative and gets, you know, people behind it, people are stupid. People are stupid. And if you make the narrative for them, and it's like option A, support terrorists, option B, be an American, people are going to go with B, even if they don't know what the items are here in America, at least anyway. So I feel like this is certainly a threat. And I also think that a lot of people would not be able to really, you know, move or continue to hold their money. So, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen, but I do kind of feel that the privacy coins as a genre are much more likely to be targeted than the ones that have, you know, a rich list, if you will.
No, look, I mean, I don't disagree with you. And that's why I always carefully sort of watch what's going on in the space, as I think a lot of us do. We're always carefully watching what regulators are doing and so on. And ultimately, this is about education, right? I mean, there are, if you think about it from this perspective, 2 decades ago, the US viewed encryption as a weapon, right? They were like export controls on encryption. Any encryption above this level that we can't crack using our secret computers, it needs export control because it's weapons grade encryption. And now, like, everyone's using TLS like all over the place, using encryption that is, like, under those laws technically illegal. So things progress, and regulators go from this is going to be used by bad people to I want my stuff to be private because I don't want my wife knowing the things that I look at on the internet or whatever. You know, those regulators with their weird obsessions.
A hypothetical person with a hypothetical wife.
Yes, a hypothetical regulator with a hypothetical wife and a hypothetical obsession for midgets. And you know, at the end of the day, like, the thing that has to happen is some regulators and their children and their family will be holders of Monero. And then the other regulators are going to go, oh, Monero, it's only used by bad people. We must stop it at the gate. We must build a wall and get the Moneros to pay for it. And other people are going to, I mean, regulators that hold Monero are going to go like, I'm sorry, I'm not paying for your stupid wall. And that will be the end of it, and no one will ever talk about it again because apparently we discussed it in 2017.
You have quite an obsession with Mexico.
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, it's like I've got to throw it in because that's where I lost my private keys in the boating accident, Doug.
Right.
So
yeah.
Coming back to the scene of the crime.
It's all coming together here. So this is another question that somebody asked. We're going to get into a few more questions that the public asked here. How vulnerable is Monero to quantum computing?
It's a good question. Well, I guess we'll find out when quantum computers actually exist.
That's true.
But between now and then, no, like so I had this concern about quantum computing, right? And I was like, oh my God, quantum computing, we're gonna lose all our money. And then I went to a conference in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and I spoke to a postgrad who was a quantum computing specialist. And I asked him this question, and I was like, but do you think quantum computers will mean that people can crack my Bitcoin private keys? And he said to me, well, I will tell you when quantum computers exist. And I was like, okay, cool. You know, that's kind of like the answer, right? We have some ideas about what a quantum resistant algorithm should be like. We have really strong ideas because cryptographers are clever. But until we actually have built a quantum computer with sufficient qubits, we don't actually know. So best we can do is, over time, as the cryptography that cryptographers believe is quantum resistant starts to become a little bit more mature, then Monero can start to incorporate some of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that it's pretty far away for us to know when they will be here and what exactly we should be worried about. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So there was something when I was doing, whenever I'm going to have a podcast, I do a little Googling and try and find some stuff about my guests before we go on. And something happened roughly 10 months ago, and I couldn't seem to find exactly what it was, but something happened 10 months ago that a lot of people in the community were upset with you about. It seems like possibly saying something about an announcement or something like that. I feel like you probably know what I'm talking about. Could you expand on the story?
Sure. So at Consensus last year, which was in May, I was at Consensus, and I just got like everyone was announcing a token. They were like, we have a token for waffles on the blockchain from IHOP coin. This is the future. Everyone buy IHOP coin today.
And they bought IHOP coin.
Yeah. At the end of it, I was so burnt out. I was like, you know, Monero needs an ICO. It needs a token. So I created this video, and you can see it on mea.business. and it was a video announcing the Monero Enterprise Alliance and saying that the ICO was coming soon. And what I did before, like after I made the video, was I showed it to a bunch of people and we all had a good laugh. And I posted a picture of like some of the people I was with, and I was like, before that I tweeted out, I was like, there's a big announcement happening tomorrow night at the Monero meetup. And I'd never made an announcement before. So everyone like who had been following me for longer than like 2 months was like, haha, funny joke. And then I showed it to a bunch of people and I posted a photo of all of us. And I was like, just showed them the announcement video. And they're like, oh my God, it blew my mind. And some of them retweeted it. And so it was like a whole thing. And then at the Monero meetup, I like live tweeted it and I dropped the video, and like everyone lost their minds. And the price went from like, I don't know, the price went up to like, what is it? At the time, I can't remember, $30 or $40, $130, whatever it was. It like did a little spike and then it did a little crash. And yeah, I think it went to like over $40 and then it crashed back down to like $35. And now Monero is sitting at like $170. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because at the time, Fluffy Pony profited from all his followers because he bought a bunch of Monero and dumped it at the top whilst he was showing the video in New York. That's obviously what happened. It's been a struggle to live that down because like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but most people like were very angry and then forgave me. And then there's a small group of people who are like, never forget that Fluffy Pony dumped on his followers and the price tanked by $5 and now it's up by over $150, but that doesn't matter.
I think this is a problem that a lot of people have that are figures in crypto, because the thing is, when you say stuff, especially someone who's in an important role like you are, it does matter for the way that things trade. And frankly, you joking that there is an announcement is more newsworthy than probably 80% of the quote news that I read online on our cryptocurrency every day. So it's difficult because I think people try and hold you to some absurd standard that everything that you have to do is based around price. And I talked a little bit about this with Charlie Lee, and you could tell that it sort of weighed on him that so many people were just, always getting angry about like his motives or why he would say stuff or all of these different things that, he should be concerned about, but he wasn't. And so he didn't like having to have that pressure of people thinking that he's using his platform to make money. And I think there's also a little bit of a divergence in the cryptocurrency community of influencers who are very much willing to use their influence to make money. We think of the John McAfees, we think of some of the YouTubers on this great platform. And then we see people that want to try and be as pure as possible and try and seem like they're not going to try and make money. And I think that the answer, and this is never the answer people want, but I think that the answer is really in the middle. And it's just, look, if you're an influencer in this space, part of that territory comes with opportunity to make money. But there's also, it's also important for you to stay honest to people and to not do things that are, I'm going to just say fucked up, because it's so easy to do here. It's so easy to be paid for stuff. It's so easy to make markets move, especially as a bigger personality. So I think like at least the way that I try and approach it as someone that does have an audience that listens to me, I try and just, still be myself. And if I want to joke around, I think that's totally fine. I mean, be yourself. Like, you live once, like why be afraid of what people are going to say? But I also try and be straightforward and honest with what I do and saying what I own, or saying, just disclosing things in general and trying to be honest. What's your take on the way that someone who has clout in this space, how they should behave and act, and sort of the responsibilities that they have because of it?
So I guess the first thing is like, maybe just to back it up a sec, like one of the big lessons for me was learning that I had clout. Like, I didn't realize, I thought like, hey, my followers are the same group of followers that I've always had, like for years, and there's just a couple more of them, and it was kind of a shock realizing that like this whole fake announcement thing could have any impact on the price. You know, especially because like we've had all this other evidence to the contrary, where announcing that Bitcoin got hacked made the price rise. So you'd sort of expect me saying that there's an announcement to make the price crash, but apparently that wasn't the case. I think, I mean, how should people with clout act? You know, at the end of the day, like we have a responsibility, and this is something I believe. We have a responsibility as influencers. I hate that word. It's terrible.
Welcome to the team.
Oh my God. Well, you know, we have a responsibility as thought leaders. You know, please everyone follow my thoughts. I have the best thoughts. We have a responsibility as influencers to our audience, and that responsibility extends past being pragmatic about the stuff that we own, and saying like, yes, I own some waffle token, but waffle token might not be the future of digital currencies or whatever. That's part of it, but part of
what exchange is that on again?
Say again.
What exchange is that one on, real quick?
Waffle token. Oh, it's trading on Wafflance. You know, Wafflance. It's the Binance sister exchange. Waffle base. Shift waffle. Anyway, I digress. Like the thing is like we've got a responsibility to obviously be pragmatic about that, so that people don't go rushing in because, you know, oh, Fluffy Pony bought waffle token, we must all buy it now. But more importantly, I think that we have a responsibility to talk about things that we haven't bought, you know, like or that we don't own or that we don't believe in. Because I get accused of FUD a lot, and my answer has been and will always continue to be, I am a technical person. Put Monero aside. Forget about Monero. As a technical person, I am able to make certain assertions. I'm able to make certain evaluations of other projects, of projects that aren't Monero. And I'm able to then speak about those assertions. I'm able to go like, you know, sometimes it's just jokes. Sometimes it's like, look at this idiot who thinks that Ethereum is cool, but he's an idiot. And then other times it's like, okay, yes, this person from Ethereum that, you know, said something that I can't argue with, that I respect. And then some other times it's like, hey, Ethereum's a scam, you know, and I'm going to get a bunch of flack just for saying that on your show. People are going to be like, oh, did you hear Fluffy Pony? He fudded Ethereum on the Doug Poker show.
I actually might title this video, Fluffy Pony says, quote, Ethereum's a scam. That's a juicy video.
it'll just, you know, it'll just be like 2016 all over again. But I mean, like the point is, like, as a technical person, surely people should come to me and be like, hey, technical person, what do you think about X? They don't need to disclose that they hold a bunch of X. And I should be able to go, well, you know, I've read the white paper and I think X is a scam. And they should go, thank you for your opinion. And then they should go to someone else. And they should gather opinions from a bunch of technical people and then make some sort of conclusion. And they don't. Instead, they listen to the person who created X and the person who's pumping X, and they go, oh, X is amazing. It's BitConnect 2.0. And then when somebody somewhere says, hey, guys, maybe it's a scam, they go, oh, don't say that. That's FUD and nonsense. And you're just saying it because you're salty and you missed out on mad gains.
That's exactly what happens. I mean, you can't say something negative about what anyone owns and not take flack because they feel assaulted. The space is, people are so tribal about their favorite coins, right? You're coming after us. Oh yeah, well, we're coming after you, and you're gonna get blocked on Twitter. You know, it's personal. It's not like, let's be objective, right? And look at this and get good opinions and try and, you know, have a good strategy. It's, I love this and you're trying to fuck with it. And I will die for my cryptocurrency. I swear to God, say something about Tron right now. Don't even, right? And that's just the attitude that people have. You really can't win.
Don't even talk about the white paper being plagiarized. All of that white paper was original. I wrote it myself. Signed, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a serious problem. I don't even really know what good solutions are to trying to prevent that from happening, because people will always be somewhat financially incentivized to promote what they think or what they own and what they think is the future. I will say this though, and this is where things, because I like what you said, by the way. I totally agree. We should talk about things that we don't own. But here's my problem as an investor and as a, I guess a poker player as well. That background matters somewhat here too. When I see something and I say to myself, that's good value, or I like what they're doing here, I buy some. I don't say like, oh, yeah, that's cool, and then not buy any. I just add that to my portfolio. Maybe in like, if it's something I like a lot, it'll be more of it. If it's something I like a little, maybe a little bit. I don't think that there are too many things that I like but don't own. And then that becomes kind of its own problem too, right?
Sure, because you're bag holding. But okay, so maybe then the answer is to disclose that you own, and maybe to disclose a percentage of your portfolio. I mean, you don't need to disclose the actual amount, but you could be like, I like Waffle Token, and Waffle Token makes up 3% of my crypto portfolio. And then and here's why I like it. Or like, I hate Waffle Coin because it is a fork of Waffle Token and obviously a scam.
Because Waffle Token was the true, in Waffleoshi's vision, it was about Waffle Token.
IHOP's True Vision.
IHOP's True Vision, of course. Yeah, no, for what it's worth, that's something that I do a lot. I constantly will say not only that I own something, but roughly how much my portfolio it is, which is always hard to figure out exactly too. But I like being honest and disclosing that information, because I think it makes you more credible too, that you're saying like, this is my position and these are my thoughts. But you just can't get past the FUD train. I remember with a video that I did. I've had a few videos where I said something that was not factually correct. Generally, though, it was in the realm of correct. I had a slight mistake in the way that I worded something. For example, with Icon, I said that their mainnet had not launched. And that was not true. That was a lie. And I am sorry to my audience. I'm sorry to you good people that I lied to you. The mainnet had launched, but their wallets didn't have functionality yet. Right? So they had a launched mainnet that didn't have functionality, not a not launched mainnet. And I apologize deeply to my followers that happened. But the next day after that video, I'm just like on Reddit, and I see this thread on the Icon subreddit, and it says Doug Polk hates Icon. And I click on it, and it's like, you'll never believe what Doug Polk said in his show yesterday. He said that the mainnet hadn't launched, and it had launched. We just don't have wallets, but he said it hadn't launched yet. And then the next 10 posts are like pitchfork emojis, essentially. And then like one guy like, oh, get him. And then like that just gets uploaded to the top, and it's like Doug Polk hates Icon. I actually kind of like Icon for the little that I know about it. It's just the mainnet wasn't working. I don't have any like hidden agenda here to screw with Icon, to try and spread FUD and rumors and try and hate on your cryptocurrency. I was just merely making an observation that they said mainnet would be launched on this date and it wasn't working on that date. I don't have like some secret hidden agenda to try and screw with your favorite coin. And this happens with basically any coin I say something negative about now. If I say it in a video, it ends up on that subreddit. Doug Polk hates us. And then what happens is those people kind of leave my community. And I can see it from like the comments, right? They leave the community and then they just try and support each other and try and pump each other up. And so I just don't know what good solutions are to that problem. I mean, it's probably just part of the way that things are, but it's certainly funny to see one thing that I said that was factually wrong. It was wrong. I was wrong, guys. And then that's the result afterwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, and that happens, like being factually wrong does happen. It's not like it's uncommon. And by the way, I still owe you 3 Monero for saying that and dumping Icon. Thanks. I appreciate your efforts. But
not
that's it. Oh, we're still on. Oh, my bad.
Oh.
Sorry. Oh, massive error in judgment. But it's true though. Like, I mean, you just can't say anything, right? You can't, like the minute like my favorite is, I tend to use the word scam because I think that people can be unintentional scammers And it's not that I'm outrightly saying the person is going to jail. It's like, it's a scam, guys. You know, it's a scam means a bunch of things. And I would think that by now, by 2018, people have enough intuition to understand what that means. And yet I get told, like, how dare you call it a scam, sir? We are going to take you to court, and wherewith the judge will say that it is not a scam, and you have ruined our project. It's ridiculous. It's like you know, like I always sort of like hark back to when I was in school, and if someone was like, "Oh, you're an idiot," you didn't go like, "I will take you to the teacher because you called me an idiot." You just like took it on the chin and you called him a moron and said that his mother was fat. Like, I mean, that's how you dealt with it. And now it's like 2018, you say something on Twitter and everyone threatens to take you to court. It's like, come on, guys, let's grow up. Like, we can mudsling a little bit because that's fine, as long as it's factual. And if I say something that's not factual, call me out, I'll correct it, and we'll move on with our lives. It doesn't need to be like this big thing that we do for the next 3 months.
Totally agree, and I actually encourage people, like, if I'm actually wrong about something and not just some minor technicality, if or you can always let me know either way. Like, I want to know that I was wrong so I can learn it and be correct in the future. I don't want to I don't want to say things that are mistakes. That's not the way that I want to operate and conduct myself. I want honest information, and it helps me make my point stronger by actually having good information. And lawsuits are, like, the threat of a lawsuit is so common these days. I get threatened by lawsuits all the time. All the time. Happens to me all the time. And I always have the same response. I always say, "Oh, that sucks, man. I guess I'll see you in court." And then where are the court dates? Where are the court dates? I've not seen it. I've not been to court yet. So I don't know. Maybe they're probably all pending, and they're probably like building up right now. And then
Yeah.
in a month, I'm like, "Sorry guys, no videos. We're in court this month from all the lawsuits that happen." You know, and it'll be over things like, "Well, you said that what I did was unethical," and it was ethical, and that's slander. You just slandered me. I'll see you in court. All right, well, see you in court, man. Never any follow-ups. We never get any follow-ups to the "I'll see you in court," and it happens over and over again. And I actually think as well that, in general, the threat of a lawsuit, you kind of have to view it like, okay, is this actually something that there could be a lawsuit on? And if it's not, like, just don't even waste your time, because people are just trying to get attention. It's mainly an attention and like, do what I want, and trying to just get you to say things or do things. So yeah, I don't know. Part of it kind of comes back to, I feel that as a society, I think people feel it's weird now because people feel that everyone should be able to say what they want, but not if what they want is something that I disagree with or it offends me. Then you can't say it. So it's like, well, guys, you can't really have it both ways. You either get to say what you want or you get to not be offended. And at the end of the day, you get to say what you want. Life isn't about, oh, you can't be offended. That's something that I don't really understand, where a lot of people that like very small things get to them or hurt them, or they feel upset by. It's like, at some point you're going to go out in the real world and you're going to do stuff, and people are going to be there, and people suck. People suck, and you're going to be there. So you can't be ready to just crumble. Like, you know how many times the comments say mean, nasty things about me? Probably, I haven't been watching the comments, probably 100 today. You know, you were talking about all of the Verge guys and how they say the same things. It's like clearly botting. And I was going through them and I'm like, bot. And I saw a comment and said, "Hey Doug, congratulations on your pregnancy, #Verge." And I was like, that's not a bot. That the fat jokes probably aren't bots. But the thing is, you're going to see so many people that want to cut you down or say negative things. And if you're not going to be like, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do, I'm going to be the person that I want to be, and I'm going to go after my dreams, and like, you can just say whatever you want to me, it's not going to affect me, then it's going to always wear you down. So if you're someone and you have a coin you like and people say negative things about it, I've said this a million times, and say it again, try and get honest opinions about it from technical people, and try and understand what the negative aspects are, and then make a rational decision and understand why there are people on both sides of the aisle. Don't just, like, close your eyes and like cover your eyes, close your ears, and just like start ranting like, FUD. Learn and try and actually gain something from it, and don't let people offend you just because they said something that was mean.
Yeah, and also, I mean, that like the other problem, of course, is don't take something that someone said, post it on the subreddit of the coin that you love, and then go, well, all these people on the subreddit are saying that he's fudding, so obviously he's fudding. I mean, that's the complete opposite of what you need to do. That's not how you like. That's not rational. It's not how you come to some sort of clear understanding of something. If somebody says, well, you know, this white paper is incorrect in section 7, paragraph 2, go and understand why. And maybe that person's incorrect, but at least go and satisfy it for yourself. Don't go and post on the subreddit so that you have 300 comments going, he is incorrect because I'm a mathematician, I promise, and I'm also on Reddit 24 hours a day.
As mathematicians are. What subreddits do you like?
So, I don't know, like, you know, like our cryptocurrency gets a little much. In terms of like cryptocurrency subreddits, like, I used to enjoy Bitcoin Serious, but no one posts on that anymore. So like our Bitcoin is okay. Our BDC I tend to avoid, not because of lack of technical content, because sometimes there is, but it's just that the like weird politicized bantering becomes a little bit much, and I just kind of want to avoid that. You know, I just want to read, like, I just want to follow it for news.
Right.
You know, I don't want to follow it for like Bob said this and Roger said the other.
Any post with the word oh my god, block stream.
Yes.
You just know that that's a post that you just would rather not read.
So come on, guys, who cares? No one cares about your opinions. Just give me the news. Tell me what happened. So, you know, I tend to follow like our movies, our television, our watches, you know, like, I don't know, like our Lego, our AFOL, which is adult fans of Lego. You could tell I like Lego. Our wine. You know, I mean, like, I follow. I mean, for me, Reddit, besides Monero and Bitcoin, Reddit is largely a way for me to read interesting things, like, and find gadgets. Like, I like our gadgets. I like our I need it. I need it, and a bunch of other weird subreddits.
So you're into watches?
Yes. Yeah, I love watches. Watches are great. I've been collecting watches for ages, for like, I don't know, like 10 years.
What are your favorite kinds of watches?
Ones that work. Those are normally pretty good.
That's most of them.
Yeah. So, you know, I cover a pretty wide genre. No, I obviously, like, at the beginning went through a phase where I loved it. I loved sort of the mainstream brands, you know, and then I fell in love with Panerai. I think that was kind of the turning point where I flipped and went from, you know, watches are cool to like, oh my God, he has a brand that I'm actually besotted with. And off the back of that, probably about 6 years ago, I started becoming obsessed with independent brands. So MBNF, obviously, and who else? Grubel Forzi is great. Yeah, well, there's a bunch. Now my brain's just flatlined. Wow.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to get you to be able to help these guys out.
No, like, so I went to I went to SIHH this year, and I spent most of my time in the Independence Hall. Resonance is great. Like, Resonance have got this cool like oil-filled watch. And then, of course, like, I'm a massive fan of like the liquid stuff. And yeah, like, I mean, independents are kind of my vibe. I've been into independent watchmaking for, yeah, like, I would say about 5-6 years.
Okay, cool. Well, what kind of wines do you like?
So predominantly South African wines. I'm a big fan of dry reds. I have a couple of blends, not a massive fan of blends. So predominantly Merlots and Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's sort of where my heart is. Like, a good Merlot is kind of soothing, you know, on a Sunday evening or on a Monday evening as it is now. So yeah, it depends. Like, like I'll occasionally venture into weird things, but for the most part, it's like give me a cab solve, give me a Merlot, and I'm 100%.
Yeah, I'm a big cab fan, but not so much on Merlot.
You need to come visit. Come visit, and I will introduce you to the wonders of South African wine.
As we can get to work on the wall.
There we go. We'll just peck away at the wall till there's nothing left.
Okay, that might be more than a weekend. At least for me. I guess I don't know about you. All right, a few other questions here, and then we'll kind of start to wrap things up. So someone asked about what your thoughts on Vitalik were. I wasn't sure if they were referencing something that you've said in the past. If so, we can just move on. But did you have any specific things you said about Vitalik in the past?
I'm going to have commented on him before. I think Vitalik's a clever kid, but I mean, he's still a kid, right? That's kind of as far as it really goes. I think that he has been held up on a pedestal unfairly. Not unfairly like, oh my God, I'm so jealous and so salty, but it's unfair to him because he can't deliver on that pedestal. And it's unfair to sort of to go like, oh, this person is such a super genius that he must be held up here. No, Vitalik. And especially as a young person, that feeds into your own like the way you view the world and the way you view yourself. And I think that that's incredibly unhealthy. And it's too late. I mean, it's too late to sort of double back on that. But can you imagine being 19 and being told you are a super genius by a bunch of adult men? Like, you're going to believe it. That's the unfortunate reality. And whether you are or aren't a super genius doesn't matter. You're still going to have that edge where you struggle to ever view the world with humility, and that's deeply problematic.
I think that's a really good point. I think about myself, and I went through ups and downs like many professional poker players have, and I think facing some hard times, I guess, in your early 20s, or when you're first becoming an adult, it's a good way to learn about yourself, and a good way to understand who you are and what you want to be and what you want to do. And if you're just like crushing it out of the gate, and then you get this warped sense of importance. Maybe warped is wrong because he is really important, but you become extremely important and successful at such an early age, then yeah, it can absolutely define who you end up being for the rest of your life. However, the guy is a super genius, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that.
No, of course. I mean, there's no doubt about like his intelligence. I think it's more about so maybe if I'm going to sort of apply it practically. Growing up as a developer, there are things that I did when I was 13 that when I was 18, I look back on, I'm like, wow, I was an idiot when I was 13. And then when I was 25, I look back on stuff that I did when I was 18, and I was like, wow, I was an idiot when I was 18. And then you're 13, you're like, man, I wasted so much time over the past 15 years. Half of those programs I could have rewritten in like 10 lines. And a lot of that is about that constant education that you have, and that self-improvement, which eventually leads to you maturing, and in your worldview and in the way that you approach problems. Because if you're approaching a problem at 30 years old, the same way you approach a problem at 18 years old, you haven't matured as an adult at all. So I think probably the best application of this is, I saw something the other day that said junior developers search Stack Exchange and copy and paste. Mid-level developers will go and figure it out, architect it, build it out in a modular way, make sure that it has the ability to be externalized and refactored into a library, and then produce a piece of working code with tests. Senior developers search Stack Exchange and copy and paste. And maybe that's like the best way of explaining it, because like you start off with like taking the shortcut, then you learn the long way and you do the long way, and then you end up taking the shortcut at the end because you're senior and you understand why you need to take the shortcut. You understand when to take the shortcut and when to do things the hard way. And so there is not that I disrespect young people or anything like that. not that I'm not young myself, but
How
I
old are
think
you?
that I'm mid-30s. I'm 36 now. Ooh, so old. But I mean, like, I think there's a lot to be said for just like hitting, like when you hit 30, like there's this weird thing where you, like, your brain flips over and you start thinking about the consequences just a little bit, where you almost didn't think about it before. And so I think that there is some credence that needs to be given to intelligence plus experience, where intelligence alone just doesn't cut it.
So what are your thoughts on Ethereum?
Well, Doug,
Give me a
Ethereum's
good
interesting
headline here.
project.
Give me a good thumbnail.
Ethereum's a really interesting project, Doug. It's a great project with interesting people. But like, straight up, I do not think that Ethereum is going to achieve what it wants to achieve. I think that Ethereum has ended up basically being a crummy version of Counterparty. It's just like a token issuance platform. And all of the hopes and dreams of smart contracts have gone out the window by and large. That's not to say that smart contracts shouldn't exist or anything like that, but I think just Ethereum is going to end up not being the platform that provides them. And that's not to say that I think that EOS or Tezos or Waves or whatever is, but I just feel like if anything is going to have a grand crash and burn, it's probably Ethereum.
Wow, strong words.
You should put that in the title so people can hate me forever.
I wouldn't do that to you. I honestly, like, I try and keep it. I try and find titles that are interesting, but don't throw my guests under the bus too much, because then it wouldn't be a very fun show to go on, would it?
True. I'll come back. I'll probably have to come back and clarify what I said about Ethereum. It'll be like a whole 2-hour show just about Ethereum.
That actually could be a pretty interesting show, honestly. So I think that part of the issue too is there are so many competitors kind of going after the same space as Ethereum, and we're seeing a lot of them become more and more successful. I particularly like the ones that are actually currently working to some extent, like Neo. And I'm not as big of a fan of the ones like Cardano and EOS that are promising great things in 2022 or whatever the game plan is.
Soon, TM, 2 weeks. I thought Cardano was launching in 2 weeks. It's not just a gigantic white paper.
It is launching in 2 weeks?
No, I don't know. 2 weeks is just a joke. I have no idea when it's launching.
You got me. On another note, I want to say that it's great to see people with our hairstyle making waves in the world.
I know. I'm not even going to joke. The other day, someone said that this is a faux hawk. This is not a faux hawk. It's not a faux hawk. This is just a gentle mass of hair atop my head that happens to be in all sorts of weird places, and that's okay.
It's a faux hawk.
Damn it, Doug. Yeah, I was trying to fight the faux hawk.
No, I mean, you're on a good squad. We got you, me, Vanessa Selps, another poker player. I can't think of a fourth person, but they're probably out there.
One day we will find a fourth person.
They're probably doing great things.
They're probably saving the world. And you know what? We should look at people that are researching cures for cancer.
It would be a good addition to the team. It would round it out nicely.
Yeah. And we need a mechanic who's like really good with helicopters and submarines. And
then we could put together a show on YouTube about how we're some sort of friends, and we just changing gears here. Do you want to talk a little bit about the magical crypto friends? I came across a couple of these episodes. I know it's your Twitter avatar. Can you talk about what that is a little bit?
It's a podcast. It's myself, Charlie Lee, Samson Mao, and Whale Panda, who you may know as Whale Panda. And we do a podcast once a month. We don't have enough time to do it more than once a month. And we talk about like stuff that's happened, and we joke and we have fun. And then like 2 or 3 weeks later, a video editor finally finishes editing it, and we upload it when the news is super old and no one cares anymore.
You should just do it live.
Yes, like this, where, we're just doing it in production. And, like no one cares that I've said things that have probably offended people all over the world.
Well, I think live is there's sort of some trade-offs. One of the great things about when you do stuff live, I think it is more engaging for the audience, and I think that obviously you get it out the moment it happens, right? So you're going to be right on the cutting edge of the news. The only downside is you might just say something really stupid, and that's something that I just am always a little bit afraid of, that I'm going to have this one moment and say something and be like, "What was I thinking there?" And that clip is going to be the one that gets played everywhere. Doug Polk says blank. I'm like, oh my God, I'm that guy now. And you're always just one sentence away. So there's definitely trade-offs, but as far as like production goes, it's a lot easier just to fire up a podcast and have some questions and go through things. And if you have any jokes, obviously you can plan them too. So would you guys ever do something live, or are you going to stick to the 3 weeks old edited versions?
That's a good question. It's definitely something that I think we need to discuss. We've considered doing live before, and we've sort of said no. I mean, maybe live with a combination of an edited one might not be a bad idea. The problem normally is that Samson runs 15 minutes late. Charlie sometimes runs one day early. So, synchronizing 4 people across multiple time zones is hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, a couple more questions here. When Lambo?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Nice. Good. I will just write that in. It's good to know. What is the Masari project? I saw a couple of people ask about this. Apparently, you had said some positive things recently.
So I don't know much about it or anything really at all. It's a fork of Monero. The one thing I really like about it is that it actually submitted a pull request back to Monero, and they're kind of trying to do stuff in a way that contributes back to upstream. So that to me is like a little pat on the back for them and for us. I don't really care if people want to go launch their own token and experiment with X, Y, and Z, as long as they are taking some of their learnings and contributing it back to the upstream project. At least it's the sort of net positive and ultimately beneficial.
Makes sense. Is a Pop-Tart a type of ravioli?
It's a Pop-Tart a type of ravioli. That's a good question. I mean, is a dessert ravioli a thing?
Well, what is ravioli really when you break it down? It's sort of bread and then some sort of filling, right? So under that definition, you couldn't say that it's not a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be pasta, right? Because otherwise, if it's bread and some type of filling, then a sandwich is a ravioli.
But is it really bread, or is it pasta? Is it defined under pasta? So then
Pretty
sort
sure.
of would you say in a way then that Pop-Tarts are pasta?
I feel like I'm being led into a trap, Doug. I feel like this conversation is going to haunt me for years. I categorically do not think a Pop-Tart is a type of pasta.
Also, here's another argument. Okay, this is something you might have thought of. Pasta would never be served singular. You would never have one unit of pasta, but there are 2 Pop-Tarts in the package, and so the plural sort of comes into play too.
Okay, I hear you. It's a good argument, but I have gone to a restaurant where I had I can't remember what type of ravioli it was, but it was a big ass ravioli served in one of those pasta dishes where the plate is massive and the little dome is in the center, and it was one ravioli.
So maybe Pop-Tarts are pasta, but ravioli can or cannot. Sort of a circle and sort of a square and rectangle type of situation.
So maybe it's like all ravioli is pasta, but not all pasta is ravioli. And all Pop-Tarts are pasta, but not all pasta is Pop-Tarts.
Not all. Yes. No, not all Pop-Tarts are ravioli.
And not all ravioli is Pop-Tarts.
This is the future, man. It's over my head. Getting over my head.
We should put this on the blockchain.
This could be on the blockchain, right next to Waffle Token. What other coins and projects do you admire And where do you see crypto going in 10 years? Just a little light question here.
Okay, so there are a bunch of projects that I kind of like. Okay, so I like Namecoin. I think that Namecoin is kind of dead in the water, but there are still some people hacking on it and they're doing good work. I like Decred. It's not entirely scammy. I've said this before. And being not entirely scammy is kind of a big deal, you know? I mean, it's like, wow. I like Litecoin because Charlie said that if I don't say that on air at least once a week, he's going to disown me as a brother. So I've said that. Hi, Charlie. Peace. And obviously I like Bitcoin. There are very few projects beyond that I am massive fans of on a case-by-case basis. Because I'm not going to remember everything. You know, as you saw earlier with watches, I'm terrible with like remembering on the spot what the things are. So I'll remember like a handful of things, and then that's sort of the end of my short-term memory. But yeah, like on a case-by-case basis, there might be some things that I look at and go like, oh, cool, these guys are trying to do some cool things. You know, generally speaking, I think that we should largely disregard most things as scams because it's too easy to create a project and it's a lot harder to maintain and build on that project.
And where do you see crypto going in the next 10 years?
Oh, that was the other soft question. So I think that we are in for a cryptocalypse eventually. Maybe not now, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 2 years. But at some point, we're in for a cryptocalypse where everything just like collapses in on itself and only the strong survive. And we have maybe 10 projects that emerge from that. And everything else just runs out of money because of the sort of collapse of everything.
Interesting viewpoint. I think I disagree. I think that if we look at the market today in just traditional businesses, you always have some Herbalifes just make it through. That's just the way that things are. And so I think that while we might have... What's up?
You're depressing me. I never thought of it in Herbalife terms. Oh my God, what if Ethereum is Herbalife? Oh no.
Oh, you're going to be lucky if Ethereum's Herbalife. What if IOTA is Herbalife?
Oh God, no, Doug, why?
Or Tron.
Why, Doug, why?
It could be any of those. It could be any of those.
What if Ripple is Herbalife?
Could happen.
Oh, jeez.
It could absolutely happen.
Okay, you raise a good point. I'll concede that. We might end up with leeches that last a long time.
All right, and last question here today. Popular and quite knowledgeable cryptocurrency YouTuber responded to a comment that you made to him telling him to stop posting, essentially, where he said, quote, "I get my kicks annoying poor, retarded peasants like you," end quote. How did that make you feel?
Well, Doug, when Suppoman said that to me, for a few days I was depressed and crying. It was inconsolable. And then I think after about 4 days I woke up and it was a sunny day. I remember clearly, and the sun was shining on my face, and I woke up and I thought to myself, who on earth is Suppoman? And then I realized that I had no idea who he was, and I moved on with my life.
Sounds like you could have saved 4 days in there.
Totally. I don't know what is wrong with me wasting 4 days.
Well, he has also blocked me on Twitter. He's in good company. Verge, Suppoman, all of the greats, have me blocked on Twitter. It's a real shame I can't see what he's up to these days. But I have to say, I think he had just no idea who you were.
I don't know what's worse, you know, if he had no idea who I was, or if he did and he thought that he could like waffle past it.
Well, I think not knowing you is worse. the other one just makes less sense.
True.
All right. Well, we've had quite a long podcast here. I want to say thanks for coming on the show. I really thought that you had a lot of great information. It is good to get technical people on here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk.
And I really appreciate you inviting me on. I know that this podcast is normally about poker, and it's great to talk about, my poker face and Lady Gaga and all the other things that we spoke about. As you know, I'm really good at card games, and so this was just a great chat about cards and stuff like that. That was excellent. We should
definitely about cards. However, this podcast has only been about cryptocurrency. So,
oh damn.
So I can tell you're a big fan of the pod. Big fan.
I've heard every episode since that one that you did with Genghis Khan. It was excellent.
Nice. How many episodes was that?
I want to say 7.
7. You're actually this is the 5th episode. And that's actually a good time to transition to our next guest that we've got coming up next Monday. Brian Micon will be here. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin poker, a little merge of the two categories. And on April 23rd, we're going to be joined by guest Jason Moe. A lot of people want to hear what he has to say about some things, another poker player who moved into the cryptocurrency space. Looking forward to both of those. Make sure to subscribe and tune in for those podcasts. Any last words you want to say here before we call it a day? Anything you want to promote or any general wisdom as you sip the last of your wine or whatever you're swirling here?
I guess the last thing I want to say is like I always say, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. Don't lose more than you're willing to invest. Other than that, have fun. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Great words, wise words. And we will remember them. All right, that's going to do it here from us. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate that. Once again, hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys again next week for our podcast on Monday. See ya.